Hello, everybody. All right. Today is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. So with that being said, right off the bat here, let me address the elephant in the room, obviously. So for those in the United States, like myself, today is, of course, Election Day. We know that we have a very big election going on, the United States presidential election. Um, You'll see just where our country will go from here after what we've been going through the last few years. Um, with that being said, of course, as many people will be covering the election all night, I, of course, am going to be doing what I normally do, just covering the worlds of anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling. Granted, not a whole lot's being reported on, as I said earlier. The presidential elections taking up most of the news cycle here. Um, but if you do want a bit of a break from that, as I said, the election coverage will be happening all night. I know of a few um, YouTubers who are you know covering it, including, of course, Red Eagle Politics, The Quartering, Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, ABL, um, you know, even Ethan Van Sciver on Comicsgate Live is covering it. So, with that being said, of course, if you want a bit of a break from all that, want to talk about some more fun stuff, I invite everybody to, of course, come here, stay here, and of course, as always, first off, you guys can like and share the stream. See if we can get a few more people in here to engage. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. And again, we're gonna try to keep the political talk to a minimum. Everybody's got their own viewpoints and stuff like that. You know, other people are covering, the election. You know, here we're just gonna try to take a break from that. Even I will probably be, after I'm done with my show, I probably will be, at least following some of the coverage throughout the night. But for right now, we're gonna just relax, let things settle out there. We're gonna focus on the fun stuff for the next now 57 minutes, 56 and a half minutes, I guess. So, with that being said, here's what's on tap for tonight. As I said, I could not find much in the way of news items tonight. So, what we're going to do, we're going to actually take a little bit of a look back on one of the classic cartoons that was produced by Hanna-Barbera. I myself had a chance to watch some of their Christmas specials this past weekend. So, we're going to take a look back at the Flintstones franchise and just, go through everything, that'll be one of the things we talk about tonight. Also, we'll be looking at, we'll be looking at some, there'll be a premiere coming up this Saturday on Toonami for those of you who still watch Toonami. Of course, have the wrestling wrap up. Look at last night's, Monday Night Raw results. Look ahead to tonight's NXT, and then of course this day in each history. With all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get into what I said we're going to talk about tonight, which is we're going to look at the Flintstones franchise. We're going to start with, of course, the original television series, one of the first animated comedies ever premiere. You know, long before The Simpsons and all that. So we're going to look at the Flintstones. We're going to basically look at the Flintstones franchise here. Just Okay, so there was a lot more information than I realized. Actually, we might just considering. Okay, so yeah. All right. Okay, so there we go. We may have all the information all on this one page. So, anyways, let me go back to the top here. All right. Let's see. And again, another friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer questions to the best of my ability. Hey, Rick. Um, so I don't know if you just got in here, but basically, I did address the elephant in the room. I know there's a lot of people talking about the presidential election. We're going to try to keep the talk about that to a minimum here. I'm going to focus on some fun stuff tonight. I'm going to talk about the Flintstones here. You know, so with that, let's look at this iconic show here. And as always, feel free to comment and or ask questions. And I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So here we go. The Flintstones is an American animated sitcom produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions, which takes place in a romanticized Stone Age setting and follows the titular family, the Flintstones, and their next-door neighbors, the Rubbles. So basically, just think of the idea of combining the Stone Age with suburbia, and that's the Flintstones. Okay, suburban life in what somebody Hanna-Barbera's imaginings of what suburban life might have been like in the Stone Age. It was originally broadcast on ABC from September 30th, 1960 to April 1st, 1966. So, and was the first animated series with a primetime slot on television. So basically, it ran for 6 seasons. It was, as they said, probably one of the first animated series with a primetime slot. Probably one of the first, animated sitcoms. So let's see. See if anybody has anything more to say. Nope, not yet. Again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention. The show follows the lives of Fred and Wilma Flintstone and their pet dinosaur Dino, and they later on have a baby girl named Pebbles, which that happened, I believe, in 1960. I think it was during the 63-64 TV season that happened. I think that was the fourth season that happened in. Barney and Betty Rubble are their neighbors and best friends, and later on adopt a super strong baby boy named Bam Bam. Bam Bam! Bam Bam! And acquire a pet hopperoo, basically the Stone Age version of a kangaroo, called Hoppy. Producers William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, who had earned 7 Academy Awards for Tom and Jerry, and their staff faced a challenge in developing a 30-minute animated program with one storyline that fit the parameters of family-based domestic situation. Family-based domestic situation comedies of the era. So, basically, Hanna-Barbera, when they were still working for MGM, were doing, of course, a lot of the Tom and Jerry shorts. So going from producing like a 7-minute short to be shown in theaters to producing a half-hour cartoon series that was going to be broadcast on television, and it was a time of a lot of particularly more rural I know CBS in particular had a number of shows like Green Acres, Petticoat Junction. You had like Mayberry, RFD. Kind of the more rural sitcoms. Going about at that point. So, anyways, as we continue on, after considering several settings and selecting the Stone Age, one of several inspirations was The Honeymooners, which was itself influenced by the Bickersons and Laurel and Hardy. Hannah considered it one of the finest comedies on television. So I guess Bill Hannah liked Laurel and Hardy, or liked The Honeymooners. And there are obviously, you can, in fact, from what I remember hearing, I remember Jackie Gleason had actually considered suing Hanna-Barbera over the Flintstones, claiming copyright infringement. But I guess he decided against it, because you do see elements, between Fred and Wilma and Barney and of course the Cramdens, Ralph and Alice and their neighbor. I can't even remember who he is off the top of my head, but anyways, the enduring popularity of the Flintstones comes from its juxtaposition of modern everyday concerns with the Stone Age setting. Its animation required a balance of visual with verbal storytelling that the studio created and others imitated. The Flintstones was the most financially successful and longest running network adult animated television series for 3 decades until The Simpsons surpassed it in 1997. In 2013, TV Guide ranked The Flintstones the second greatest TV cartoon of all time after The Simpsons. Yeah, because even after even after the first, this first series of the Flintstones completed its run in 1966, it had a significant successful run in syndication, reruns. I'm sure many of us over the years have seen it, and I know that like Boomerang, MeTV Tunes, they are currently showing it as part of their programming as well. So, anyways, let's see now. See if we got any. No. All right. So, okay. So, overview: the show is set in a comical version of the Stone Age, with features and technologies that resemble mid-20th century suburban United States, which is what I was talking about. The idea of crossing the suburban craze of the 1950s and 60s with the Stone Age setting. The plots deliberately resemble the sitcoms of the era, with the caveman Flintstone and Rubble families getting into minor conflicts, characteristics of modern life. The show is set in the Stone Age town of Bedrock, population 2,500, where dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures are portrayed as coexisting with cavemen, saber-toothed tigers, and woolly mammoths. And a lot of these dinosaurs too, also like for those of you who've seen the dinosaurs and the woolly mammoths in particular, are often portrayed as as equipment. You see in the opening series of the cranes that Fred is operating in the rock quarry, dino crane, as it were. So, animation historian Christopher P. Lehman considers that the series partly draws its humor from anachronism, mainly the placing of modern 20th century society in prehistory, which takes inspiration from suburban sprawl developed in the first 2 decades of the post-war period. Basically, again, the suburban craze of post-war suburban craze. The soldiers are coming back from World War II. They want to settle down. They want to start raising families. You know, um, you have to having to deal with all that death, right? They want to actually bring about life. So you know, so um, anyways, and of course, another friendly reminder: if you guys can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. It'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. And if you're so inclined, feel free to subscribe as well. Um, so with that, let's continue on with the article here. This society has modern home appliances which work by employing animals. Yep. It also has automobiles, um, but they mostly do not resemble the cars of today, um, as they are large wooden and rock structures powered by people, you know, who run while inside them. hmm this depiction varies according to the needs of the story. Hence the idea of Fred's big feet. You see the cavemen in the show; they have incredibly huge feet. I mean, think about that for a moment. Running barefoot on gravel roads. You had to have some pretty big feet in order to deal with that, right? You know, your feet are going to get calloused after a while doing all that. So, and incredibly strong leg muscles as well. So, let's see now. Let's see. This depiction varies according to the needs of the story. On some occasions, the cars appear to have engines, um, requiring ignition keys, and some representation of gasoline. Fred might pull into a gas station and say, quote, fill her up with ethyl, which is pumped through the trunk of a woolly mammoth marked ethyl. As well, the stone houses of the society are cookie cutter homes positioned in neighborhoods typical of mid 20th century American suburbs. Of course, I think we all know the characters. You got the Flintstones being Fred, Wilma, Pebbles, and Dino, and then their relatives, Pearl Slaghoop, Wilma's Fred's mother-in-law. I'm sure we all have seen um, Pearl and Fred's interactions, and then Uncle Tex Hard Rock. You got the Rubbles, Barney and Betty, Bam Bam, Hoppy. Some of the other characters include Mr. Slate, Fred's boss, Arnold the Paperboy, the Grand Poobah, the Water Buffalo Lodge, Sam Slagheap, Joe Rockhead, another mutual friend of Fred and Barney, the Hat Rocks, the Gruesomes. Um, and let's get into voice actor details. course, for the most part, you had the pilot that had the test screen in 1969, but then so basically you had seasons of 28, 32, 28, and then the last three seasons all had 26 episodes apiece. So, history and production. Let's look at that. What's going on? Well, I'm just going over the history of the Flintstones, Flintstones animated television series. It's a pretty fun art, fun way to um, take a load off. There wasn't much in the way of news, in the way of like any of the niche, anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling. Probably due in large part to the fact of the election coverage going on. So you want to stick around, hang out, learn a little bit about the Flintstones, maybe not think about some of the stuff going on right now, as as people will be covering it all night. Take a bit of a break here, come here and take a bit of a break, learn about an iconic cartoon, as it were. Okay. So anyways, let's get to the history and production of the Flintstones here. The idea of the Flintstones started after Hanna-Barbera produced the Huckleberry Hound show and the Quick Draw McGraw show, which were successful. However, they did not appeal to a wide audience like their previous theatrical cartoon series, Tom and Jerry, which entertained both children and adults. Some children did not need their parents' supervision to watch television. Hanna-Barbera's programs became labeled kids only. Hanna-Barbera wanted to recapture the adult audience with an animated situation sitcom. Yes, when Hanna-Barbera got started with like Rough and Ready, the Huckleberry Hound show and Quick Draw McGraw, those were more directed towards kids. And you had anthropomorphic characters. Originally on like Huckleberry Hound, you had the segments were Huckleberry Hound, Pixie, Dixie, and Mr. Jinx and Yogi Bear until Yogi became so popular he got his own show in 1961. And then Quick Draw McGraw himself, Babalooey, and then Ricochet Rabbit. I believe the third segment was Pumpkin Puss and Mush Mouse. Anyways, getting back to the article here. Back to the article here. Hanna-Barbera considered making the two families hillbillies, a theme that was later incorporated into two episodes, the Bedrock Hillbillies and the Hat Rocks and the Gruesom's. Ancient Romans, an idea which was later developed into the Roman holidays, Pilgrims and American Indians, before deciding on a Stone Age setting. Now, mind you, other companies had, obviously there were some other companies that were doing live action versions of comedies like this, like Beverly Hillbillies, which of course spawned off Green Acres and Green Acres and Petticoat Junction, which of course B. Benaderet, who was the original voice of Betty Rubble for the first four seasons of the Flintstones, would actually go on to play Kate Bradley on Petticoat Junction. So you also had, of course, the Andy Griffin Show and and its spinoff Mayberry RFD. So you did have a lot more of those, and then I think you also had like Flipper and Gentle Ben also come out in the 60s there, Gilligan's Island. So you had a lot of those going on. So according to Barbera, They settled on the Stone Age because, quote, you could take anything that was current and convert it to Stone Age. Under the working title, The Flagstones, a treatment was written by Harry Winkler. The family originally consisted of Fred, Wilma, and their son Fred Jr. A brief demonstration film was also created to sell the idea of a modern Stone Age family, quote unquote, to sponsors and the network. And that pilot screening happened in 1959. So it was a difficult sell and required 8 weeks of daily presentations to networks and ad agencies. June Foray and Hanna-Barbera regular Dawes Butler voiced the characters for the demonstration film, but Foray was dropped without warning before production began. Foray was upset about the rejection and refused to work with Hanna-Barbera for many years afterward, despite Barbera's efforts to offer her other work. And of course, the people who would eventually get now, Dawes Butler would come back to voice Barney in a few season 2 episodes, but of course, the roles eventually for the first season of the Flintstones, they eventually went to Alan Reed, got Fred, Gene Vanderpill got Wilma, Mel Blanc got Barney, and Bea Benaderet got Betty. So let's see. Animator Kenneth Muse, who worked on the Tom and Jerry cartoons, also worked on the early seasons of the Flintstones. William Hanna was honest about the inspiration, saying, quote, at that time, The Honeymooners was the most popular show on the air, and for my bill, the funniest. The characters I thought were terrific. Now, that influenced greatly what we did with the Flintstones. The Honeymooners was there, and we used that as a kind of basis for the concept. Again, I think the idea of putting those characters in the context of a Stone Age setting pretty much is what he's getting at. Joseph Barbera disavowed these claims in a separate interview, stating, quote, I don't remember mentioning the Honeymooners when I sold the show, but if people want to compare the Flintstones to the Honeymooners, then great. It's a total compliment. The Honeymooners was one of the greatest shows ever written. Well, of course, because, and the next paragraph is going to address the reason why he probably disavowed it. Next paragraph here, it's the same thing I kind of mentioned earlier. Jackie Gleason, creator of the Honeymooners, considered suing Hanna-Barbera Productions, but decided not to since he did not want to be known as, quote, the guy who yanked Fred Flintstone off the air, unquote. Gleason was sued because the Honeymooners was similar to the Bickersons, as critics noted at the time, but the lawsuit served by Bickerson's creator Philip Rapp was ultimately settled out of court. Another influence was noted during Hanna-Barbera's tenure at MGM, where they were in a friendly competition with fellow cartoon director Tex Avery. In 1955, Avery directed a cartoon entitled The First Bad Man, narrated by cowboy legend Tex Ritter, which was about the rowdy antics of a bank robber in Stone Age Dallas. Many sight gags from The First Bad Man annotated similar situations used by Hanna-Barbera in the Flintstones by many years. Therefore, students of American animation call The First Bad Man a progenitive seed of the Flintstones. Hey, Mike. Hey there, old street lights. Thanks for dropping in. Again, a friendly reminder: if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, anyways, continuing on with the article here. The concept was also annotated by the quote-unquote Stone Age cartoons, a series of 12 animated cartoons which Fleischer Studios released from January to September of 1940. These cartoons show Stone Age people doing modern things with primitive means, such as Granite Hotel, quote-unquote, including characters such as a newsboy, telephone operator, hotel clerk, a spoof of Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Barbera explained that selling the show to a network and sponsors was not an easy task. And this is, I guess, a quote from, I guess this next part is a quote from Joseph Barbera here. Here we were with a brand new thing that had never been done before, an animated primetime television show. So we developed two storyboards. One was that they had a helicopter of some kind, and they went to the opera or whatever. And the other was Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble fighting over a swimming pool. So I go back to New York with a portfolio and two half-hour boards, and no one would even believe that you dare to suggest a thing like that. I mean, they looked at you and they'd think you're crazy. But slowly the word got out, and I used the presentation, which took almost an hour and a half. I would go to the other two boards and tell them what they did and do all the voices and sounds and so on. And I'd stagger back to the hotel and I'd collapse. I could imagine why. The phone would ring like crazy. Like one time I did Bristol Myers. The whole company was there. When I got through, I got back to the hotel. The phone would ring and say, "quote The president wasn't at that meeting. Could you come back and do it for him?" unquote. So I had many of those. One time I had two agencies. They'd fill the room. I mean, God, about 40 people, and I did this whole show. I got to know where the laughs were and where to hit it. Nothing dead, dead, dead. So one of the people at Screen Gems said, quote, "This is the worst. This is the worst. Those guys," unquote. He was so angry at them. What it was that there were two agencies there, and neither one was going to let the other one know they were enjoying it. That's an interesting scenario, to say the least. But I pitched it for 8 straight weeks, and nobody bought it. So after sitting in New York, just wearing out, you know, really wearing out. Pitch, sometimes 5 a day. So finally, the very last day, I pitched it to ABC, which was a young, daring network willing to try new things, and bought the show in 15 minutes. Wow! So after all that hard work, they decided to go to the American Broadcasting Company, and bam, they get it in 15 minutes. Oh! Thank goodness, because this was the very last day, and if they hadn't bought it, I would have taken everything down, put it in the archives, and never pitched it again. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat thinking this is how close you get to disaster. Wow. So back to the article here. Let's first out see if any saying anything new. Oh, we do have a few new comments here. Just got here. What are we working on? Well, as I said, I'm just it's kind of a break because everybody's doing election coverage tonight because that's what's going on here in the states. So I'm doing my normal thing of focusing more on like what has traditionally been considered niche of anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling. Now, granted, there wasn't a whole lot of news in that realm today, so I'm just going over kind of the history of the Flintstones television show from back in the '60s. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. And Heather D here, Trump 2024. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so, my dear. Wow, what a steal. Oh, okay. Oh, anyways. And guys, again, if you haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. And of course, if you guys like what you're seeing, feel free to subscribe. That way you can get notifications on what when I'm on. I'm on like 6 nights a week now, Sunday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So so anyways, let's get back to the article then. All right. So when the series entered production, the working title, The Flagstones, was changed, possibly to avoid confusion with the Flagstones, the main characters of the comic strip High and Lois. After spending a brief period in development as the Gladstones, GL Adstones being a Los Angeles-based television exchange at the time, Hanna-Barbera settled upon the Flintstones, and the idea of the Flintstones having a child from the start was discarded, with Fred and Wilma starting out as a childless couple. However, some early Flintstones merchandise, such as 1961 Little Golden Book, included Fred Jr. Yeah. Well, I mean, they would eventually have a child in 1964, during the fourth season, in which, we get introduced to Pebbles. So, despite the animation and fantasy setting, the series was initially aimed at adult audiences. This was reflected in the comedy, which resembled the primetime sitcoms of the era, with family issues resolved at the end of each episode, as well as the inclusion of a laugh track. Hanna-Barbera hired many writers from live action, including two of Jackie Gleason's writers, Herbert Finn and Sidney Zelinka, as well as relative newcomer Joanna Lee. However, they still use traditional animation writers such as Warren Foster and Michael Maltese. Of course, Michael Maltese known for a lot of his work with Warner Brothers. All right, I can see all the I don't know what that's supposed to be, but wrong emojis. So the Flintstones premiered on September 30th, 1960 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and quickly became a hit. It was the first American animated show to depict two people of the opposite sex, Fred and Wilma, Barney and Betty, sleeping together in one bed. Okay. Although Fred and Wilma are sometimes depicted as sleeping in separate beds, which is true. The first live action depiction of this in American television was in television's first sitcom, 1947's Mary Kate and Johnny. The first two seasons were co-sponsored by Winston Cigarettes, and the characters appeared in several black and white television commercials for Winston. This was dictated by the custom at the time that the stars of a TV series often, quote unquote, pitch their sponsor's product in an, quote unquote, integrated commercial at the end of the episode. Yeah, that was quite a common in the like 50s and 60s, the early days of television there. I mean, it wasn't just with sitcoms either. They did it on game shows. They did it on just about anything and everything in terms of TVs. So nice Memoji background. So, anyways, as we continue on here with the article here. During the third season, Hanna-Barbera decided. Okay, so it was the third season, not the fourth season. I stand corrected. Fred and Wilma should have a baby. Originally, Hanna-Barbera intended for the Flintstones family to have a boy, but the head of the marketing department convinced them to change it to a girl since, quote, girl dolls sell a lot better than boy dolls. Although most Flintstones episodes were standalone storylines, Hanna-Barbera created a story arc surrounding the birth of Pebbles, beginning with the episode The Surprise, aired midway through the third season, in which Wilma reveals her pregnancy to Fred. The arc through the time leading up to Pebbles' birth in the episode Dress Rehearsal, and then continued with several episodes showing Fred and Wilma adjusting to parenthood. Around the time Winston pulled out their sponsorship, and Welch's grape juice and grape jellies became the primary sponsor of the show's audience, or as the show's audience began to shift towards a younger demographic. Yes, I mean, think about it. You really want to be pitching cigarettes to show that kids are now going to be watching because they're going to be looking for Pebbles, right? Yeah, better grape juice and grape jelly and all that than cigarettes. The integrated commercials for Welch's products feature Pebbles asking for grape juice in her toddler dialect, and Fred explaining to Pebbles Welch's unique process for making the jelly compared to the competition. Welch's, and of course, these were, of course, Fred being voiced by the late great Alan Reed, Pebbles being voiced by the late great Gene Vanderpill, I believe. So, also who did Wilma in the series. Let's see. Welch's also produced a line of grape jelly packaged in jars that were reusable as drinking glasses, with painted scenes featuring the Flintstones and other characters from the show. In Australia, the Nine Network ran a, quote, Name the Flintstones Baby competition during the pregnancy episodes. Few Australian viewers were expected to have a U.S. connection, giving them information about past Flintstone episodes. An American won the contest and received an all-expense-paid trip to tour Hanna-Barbera Studios. Another arc occurred in the fourth season, in which the Rubbles, depressed over being unable to have children of their own, adopt Bam Bam. This made the Flintstones the first animated series to address the issues of infertility. Though subtly, the 100th episode made but the 90th to air. Subtly. The 100th episode made but 90th to air. Little Bam Bam Rubble established how Bam Bam was adopted. 9 episodes were produced before it, but aired afterward, which is why Bam Bam was not seen again until episode 101, Daddy's Anonymous. However, Bam Bam did appear in a teaser in episode 98, Kleptomaniac Pebbles. Another story arc occurring in the final season centered on Fred and Barney's dealings with the Great Gazoo, voiced by the late great Harvey Korman. And of course, only Fred, Barney, and the kids and Pebbles and Bam Bam were the only ones, and I think the animals as well, were the only ones who could see the Great Gazoo. So, let's see. We have some more. Hey, GJ. Shelley Kaling Black, 1979. Cigarettes are bad for your lungs, I believe. Yep. Hello, ASL. Poop comes. Hello, Zoe. Welcome to the greatest video ever. Well, thank you for that compliment there, old streetlights. That's nice of you to say. I would hope more people to zoom my little sweet cheeks. All right. So, anyways, getting back to the article here. After Pebble's birth, the audience demographic expanded and the series was marketed as a family series rather than the quote-unquote adult animated show of the earlier seasons. As a result, a wider number of yearly viewers, including children, and competition from TV's trend toward fantasy shows. The episodes varied from family comedy to fantasy adventure, but still had stories about couple dynamics. The last original episode was broadcast in April 1st, 1966. Now, the broadcast history of the Flintstones. So let's look at that. Let's look at that. The first 3 seasons of the Flintstones aired Friday nights at 8:30 Eastern Time on ABC. With the first 2 seasons in black and white, beginning with the 3rd season in 1962, the ABC televised the Flintstones in color. One of the first programs in color to air on it. Season 4 and part of Season 5 aired Thursdays at 7:30, while the rest of the series aired on Fridays at 7:30. So they moved around a bit, didn't they? In the U.S., the Flintstones was part of NBC Saturday mornings from 1966 to 1970, with syndicated reruns offered to local stations until 1997, which is something we talked about earlier. When EI regulations and changing taste in the industry led to the show's move to cable television, from the time of Ted Turner's purchase of Hanna-Barbera in 1991, TBS, TNT, and Cartoon Network aired the program. On April 1st, 2000, the program moved to Boomerang, where it aired until March 6, 2017, but returned to the channel on July 30th, 2018. Online, the series was made available on the Into TV service beginning in 2006. Then the online version of Kids WB until it was discontinued in 2015. As of 2017, full episodes are available in the U.S. on Boomerang's subscription video on demand service, with select clips made available on the official YouTube account tied to the revamped Kids WB website. In 2019, MeTV acquired rerun rights to the series, returning the show to broadcast television for the first time in over 20 years. The first 3 seasons of the series can currently be streamed on Max, a streaming service owned by Warner Bros. Discovery, while the complete series can be found on Tubi, a streaming service owned by Fox Corporation. On August 1st, 2024, the program can also be found on Hulu. And also, and just so you know, Friendly TV also has it on MeTV Tunes as well. You can catch it on the MeTV Tunes channel, part of the MeTV family of channels as well. So, Mike, do you know Mr. Beast? I think I've heard the name before. Hello. Good for you. Let's see. Oh, really? An achievement. All right. Anyways, back to the article here. In Canada, the Flintstones first aired Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on CBC television until the 3rd season when it moved to CTV television network. At the time, CTV aired the show at different evening time slots throughout the last 3 seasons. Syndicated reruns also offered to local stations until the early 90s. The show was also later carried over time on YTV, Teletoon Retro, Cartoon Network, and Boomerang, alongside French channels ICI, TKS, TVA, and Presse 2. When the BBC first aired the Flintstones to England in January 1961, the program slowly began to spread its popularity around the world. Following the BBC's successful original run of the series, was repeated for decades in various daytime and early evening time slots. Episodes were also sometimes used by the BBC in case of last-minute schedule changes, such as coverage of sporting events being affected by bad weather. The final BBC broadcast of an episode was in 2008 on BBC Two. Independent broadcaster ITV also held the rights to show a package of episodes in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and again in the late 1990s. Additionally, the series appeared on Cartoon Network in the mid 1990s. Other international networks that aired the original run of the series include RTF in France, ARD in Germany, Rai 1 and Rai 2 in Italy, MTS in the Netherlands, and Fuji TV in Japan. All right, so before we'll talk about the reception it got here in a moment. Just let me see where we're at on time. It looks like we probably will run over an hour. Normally, I try to keep it around an hour, but it looks like we're going to run a little over here. And again, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions about what we're talking about. And if you're so inclined as well, if you guys want to subscribe to the channel here to where you can get notifications as to when we're on. So with that, let's go ahead and continue on here. So reception. The night after the Flintstones premiered, Variety called it a pen and ink disaster, and the series was among many that debuted in a quote-unquote vast wasteland of a 1960-61 television season, considered one of the worst in television history up to that point. As late as the 1980s, highbrow critics derided the show's limited animation and derivative plot. Yet the show outlasted many of these critics, I bet. So, animation historian Michael Barrier disliked the series, calling it a dumb sitcom, and stated that I can readily understand why someone who, as a small child, enjoyed, say, the Flintstones, might regard that show fondly today. I have a lot more trouble understanding why anybody would try to defend anything about it on artistic grounds. Despite the mixed critical reviews following the premiere, The Flintstones has generally been considered a television classic. It was rerun continuously for 5 decades after its end. In 1961, The Flintstones became the first animated series to be nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy Series, but lost out to the Jack Benny program. In January 2009, IGN named The Flintstones as the 9th best in its top 100 animated TV shows. The first season of the series received an approval rating of 100% on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, based on 9 reviews with an average score of 6 out of 10. Common Sense Media gave the series 3 out of 5 stars, saying still a classic, but times have changed. Currently, several authors consider the Flintstones as a cartoon linked to the golden age of television animation. So now we'll just kind of go down real quick and talk a little bit about some of the follow-ups here of the Flintstones. Just list them off. The Flintstones was my favorite show. I don't know why people hated on it. Again, as was stated in that one part of the article there, Old Street Lights, I think it was based a lot on the fact people, you had these highbrow critics who looked down on it because it was kind of depicting more suburban life, in the time it was, shown, there was broadcast. So, so that's probably what it was. But anyways, so here are some of course, some of the follow-ups to the series. The Pebbles and Batman show, which ran for one season from 71 to 72, followed by the Flintstones Christmas Hour from 72 to 73. The new Fred and Barney show in 1999 ran for 2 seasons, followed by a newer version of the Flintstones comedy show in 80-81. The Flintstone Kids from 1986 to 88. Then What a Cartoon did a couple episodes on it. Cave Kids, which came out for one season in 1996. There were some shorts about the Rubbles, and then compilation shows. The Flintstones Comedy Show of 73, 74. Fred Flintstone and Friends. Now, the compilation shows were just, they put together some of the shows from like the Flintstones, Pebbles and Bama, and the Flintstones Comedy Show. As then you had, of course, Fred and Barney Meet the Thing. Only original content on this show was not really the Flintstones, which is the Thing. Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo. Again, and then the Flintstone Funnies. Theatrical animated films, of course, The Man Called Flintstone, which came out in 1996, released by Columbia, and then Space Jam, and then television specials. As I said, one of the reasons why I decided to go over the Flintstones this week, because I had a chance to watch some of the Flintstone Christmas specials this past weekend, which of course included a Flintstone Christmas, let's see, a Flintstones Family Christmas, a Flintstone Christmas Carol, some of the TV movies, of course, the Christmas Carol, Christmas Flintstone, which was the Christmas episode in 1964 of the Flintstones. So with that, I think that's as much as I'm going to cover. We're kind of going a little beyond the hour here. So now we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap. So for those I know there are a lot of new people here, so let me just kind of explain a little bit about my channel real quick. I tend to cover what I term niche, traditionally what is considered niche news, which is like anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling. I broadcast 6 nights a week at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, where Monday through Friday now we're doing a niche newscast where we go over the day's news from anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling, and then on Sundays now we'll be doing I'm doing a historical comic retrospective where we're looking back and reading through and going over old comics. So with that, we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna go to another part of the show now called the wrestling wrap up, where we kind of get caught up. Now, tonight I just have WWE stuff to talk about. Normally, I'd also have like AEW and sometimes TNA stuff. So first, I'm going to go back to last night's Raw, Monday Night Raw, which came to us on the USA Network from the Muhammad Abdo Arena, which taped the previous night. So the opening match of the evening saw Io Sky win a battle royal to become the number one contender to the WWE Women's Championship. You also saw on the show the War Raiders defeat the New Day in a tag team match. Dragon Lee defeated Chad Gable. And in a number one contender fatal four-way, Damian Priest outlasted Dominic Mysterio, Seth Rollins, and Sheamus to become the number one contender to the WWE World Heavyweight title, in which of course, Bronson Reed also got involved going after Seth Rollins to try to continue their feud. So now moving on to tonight's NXT, what for those who what you have to look forward to on tonight's NXT on the CW app. So get to that point here. Let's see. Oh wait, actually, actually, I'm sorry. I'll have to talk about it because that's actually happening tomorrow night. Because that's the episode of NXT where they're doing it from the old ECW arena. We'll be talking about that tomorrow night. So now I'm done with the wrestling wrap up. So now what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to move on to the last segment of the show, which is this day in Niche history. So today being Tuesday, November the 5th, 2024. Let's take a look back at this day in Niche history. History! So 2014, 1994, and 1949. So first off, I'd like to wish a happy 75th birthday to American actor Armin Shimmerman. Now, I know many people know him from his role as Quark in the Star Trek franchise. Of course, starting in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but also making guest appearances in Voyager, and also he portrayed Quark. He voiced Quark in the Lower Decks episode "Here All Trust Nothing." He also lent his voice to a number of cartoons, including General Scar in Evil Concarne and the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. He also has provided the voice of Professor Moon in a Justice League Unlimited episode, Zilla Zoc, Justice League Action, Calculator in Batman, Raven the Bold, Silk Vigma in Ben 10. So, happy 75th birthday to Armin Shimmerman. Now moving ahead to 1994, on this date, 30 years ago today, back in 1994, from the ECW Arena, now known as the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, PA, ECW held its November to Remember pay-per-view. The main event saw Two Cold Scorpio and Chris Benoit end in a double countout after 12 minutes. Prior to that, Chris Benoit battled Sabu to a no contest. In a match for the ECW Tag Team Championships, Public Enemy, Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock defeated Cactus Jack and Mikey Whipwreck to become the new ECW World Tag Team Champions. Shane Douglas retained the ECW Heavyweight Championship over Ron Simmons. Dean Malenko retained the ECW television title over the Tasmaniac, known to everybody as Tasmania. Earlier in the night, of course, Two Gold Scorpio defeated Mr. Hughes. And then you saw the Pitbulls defeat Bad Breed of the Rotten Brothers, Axel and Ian Rotten, and then the night opened up with JT Smith defeating Hack Myers. So that happened 30 years ago today, November to Remember. From happy birthday to Armin Shimmerman. So, anyways, now of course, moving on to the last piece in niche history, going back just 10 years ago today, from 2014. On this date, 10 years ago today, in 2014, the 40th and final issue of Artifacts from Image's Top Cow imprint went on sale on this date 10 years ago today. It sold for $3.99 with 32 pages. So 10 years ago today, the 40th and final issue of Artifacts from Image Comics, Image's Top Cow imprint, went on sale on this date 10 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Like to see a lot of new viewers. If you liked what we were doing tonight, I encourage you to subscribe. Talk a lot more about, we talk a lot about, again, anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling. Sure you guys will enjoy it. Serve as a bit of a break from what else is going on in the world. Going back, looking back on the stuff we grew up on. we'll be back here, of course, tomorrow night with more niche news. Also, this Sunday will be our next episode of our historical comic retrospect. My co-host will be Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be going over comics that went on sale in April of 1940 from what was known then as Timely. We know it today as Marvel Comics. So I hope you guys will be back here tomorrow night as well as every night. And with that, before I do finally sign off here, let me see what great stream might come back tomorrow. I've got to take a shower. Bye, Mike. Well, thank you for coming in. Old Street, as I said, Old Street Lights. If you want, feel free to subscribe, and then that way you'll be notified when I'm on. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.